Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and in this video on the BAT Server 2, I'm looking at speech-to-text and text-to-speech. Speech-to-text you'd use for basically making subtitles, which was in the BAT Server before and is working as well as it did before. I'm just going to go on a quick run-through on that because I have covered that in other videos, but it's one of the most useful things about the BAT Server, so I think it's worth talking about again. Just at the end of this section, there will be a little thing about installing it, which is worth looking at if you've got a 5 series graphics card. So suppose I want to take this. This is a video uploaded to YouTube, and it's all about, as it says, EDIUS 11.4. And I want some subtitles for that. So to get subtitles, all I've got to do is right-click on it, go to speech to text, choose an option, and it gets on with it. So now you'll notice something pops up here. This is the little window that the BAT server produces that tells you what's going on. Now you can cheerfully ignore it and just move it out of the way if you want to. But now that is showing you the progress of what's going on with making subtitles out of this video. And this video is 15 minutes long. And I am not running on the most up-to-date computer here. I'm actually filming this tutorial on what today is quite a low-powered computer, which is a 7th generation processor. And we're up to about 15th generation now. 7th generation processor, 32 gig of RAM, and an NVIDIA 1060. So if I was running this on an up-to-date machine, it would be a lot quicker. So there we are, my subtitle has finally been made. It's been put straight back up here into the bin. And if I want to, I can take that, drag it onto the timeline, and now I've got a subtitle for all of that video. It's just done automatically. Now I can edit it if I want to. Literally, I've taken it, dumped it onto the timeline, double click on it, it'll open it up in VisTitle, and then you can come through and change stuff. So typically these things always get my name wrong, David Clarke with an E, so I could come and put an E in it if I wanted to, and then save it. If you want to save that as something that you can take off to YouTube, simplest thing is open that up in VisTitle, come up here to export, and here you can either choose to export the whole thing or a bit of it, but I'm going to say export to subrip SRT file. So if you export it to that, it'll take your subtitle inside of VisTitle and give you something that you can, for example, upload to YouTube, or you could use something else in the BAT server to combine it with a file where you can turn the subtitles on and off. That thing, that SRT file, is something that I can actually open with Notepad, and I can edit in Notepad if I want to. So I can come through here and change it to David Clarke. Where it says EDIUS, well, let me just use the find and replace to change it to EDIUS. Doesn't matter if you do it inside of VisTitle or inside of here. I actually use that a lot because it's very accurate. It's one of the few things she spells EDIUS correctly. And there are things where it could be better. Why is the word missing on its own there? I could tweak it by going inside VisTitle and tweaking it, but it's really good out of the box. That is a lot better than using Acoustica, although Acoustica does work better if you choose a better model than the one that is installed as a default. But I don't bother anymore because this works so well and it's free. And it's using a thing called Whisper, which is generally well known as a very good subtitle making program. Obviously, you can go and add stuff in on your own. So I'll just click on this. Let's choose speech to text. Click on the plus. It can actually do it in lots of different languages, but it makes English. So it'll take German or whatever and translate it to English. Now I'm only doing English, so I'm just going to shove that on there. Do you want to translate it to English? Well, no, because I'm English in the first place. But if your native language wasn't English, you'd do that. And then the next question you've got here is, do you want to do this? Now, you might not understand what Enable High Precision Float is, but if you have an NVIDIA 5000 series graphics card, which I do in this system, it's a 5060 Ti, then you've got to say yes, and it has chosen it as a default. If you say no, it probably won't work. Go next. Do I use the whole video or a trimmed version? Oh, let's go for the whole thing. What model do I want to use? Now, the bigger the model, the more accurate it's going to be. But it'll take longer to download it and put it onto your machine, and it will use up space. I tend to go for one of the large ones, to be honest. I mean, I have set medium quite a few times, or let's go for one of the large ones. I don't know the difference between version 1, version 2 and so on, but yeah, you go for a small one, it'll be quicker, but it won't be as accurate. Click next, add it to the menu, and yeah, once again, I've got too many things, so let's turn a couple off. And there we are, I've now got a new version of the subtitle generator apart from the ones that were actually in there in the first place. So you've got these subtitles, what can you do with them? Well, personally, I take the SRT file and I upload it to YouTube and I use those on all of these videos. But what if you want to give people a file with the subtitles in there? Well, your two options are you export a video and they're burned in, or you export them in such a way that they can turn them on and off in a player program. EDIUS doesn't have a way of doing the second thing. It can burn them in quite happily, but it doesn't have a way of making a file where you can load it up in a program like, say, VLC and turn the subtitles on and off. The best way to do that is make what's called an MKV file, and the BAT server does add in the option to combine a subtitle with a video clip and make an MKV file. This one will actually make an MKV for you. So to add it in, click on the plus sign, choose where it's going to go. Is it going to appear in the bin or the timeline? Let's go for the bin. What do you want to call it? I'm quite happy with what he's got as a default. Or I could say, and then submit. And now if I go to the bin and right click, come down here, it's put it under a submenu called create, which you can change, but that's where it puts it as a default. I'm going to select it and it's going to pop up and saying, okay, what SRT file do you want? So let's find the SRT file, which happens to be stored right next to the original clip because that's where EDIUS made it. Click on open, the file name, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then let it get on with it. And again, it does a little bit of jiggery pokery here and it makes a new file. If I go to the folder where it's saved, you can see I've now got an MKV file there. Double click on it, loads up in VLC. And because these are added as subtitles in an MKV file, I can go to subtitle and I can turn them on and off. I've got my VLC as a default to display subtitles, but you can turn them off if you want to. You can give that MKV to somebody else and they should be able to play the subtitles and turn them on and off. But MKVs aren't quite as standard as MP4 files, so it's possible that it won't play back on their TV, for example. If they can play MKVs, then that's a way of combining a subtitle with a video clip and giving you subtitles that you can turn on and off, because it's not an option you have with MP4 files. Again, you can add that in simply with the BAT server. Next thing I'm going to do is look at the text-to-speech options. These are all quite new and there are quite a few different options. So I've gone onto a new computer and here I have so far installed the Chatterbox version of text-to-speech. I haven't installed the others. So let's see what options that gives to us. So if I come to my BAT server panel and I'm going to click here to add a new entry, and looking through here, I want to look for the text-to-speech ones. It's not that hard to find, but if you do want to trim down the list here, you can now come up to this filter here and pop down and find something like text-to-speech, which then puts it down to the options that you've currently got. And because I've only installed the one option, I've got this: convert speech to text, create a cloned voice. This is the thing where you can make a clone of somebody's voice, probably your own, and then use that to read out some text. So I'm going to just click on the plus button, come in here and set the options. So obviously I'm going to choose English because I'm English. The next thing is if you want to actually use a voice, you've actually got to tell it what voice to use. So the first thing it says is, well, you can click on this and bring up the voiceover tool and record something using that. So you could record yourself sitting in there. And like it says, it needs to be at least 10 seconds. It needs to be 24 kilohertz, blah, 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 blah. In true Blue Peter fashion, I've got one I recorded earlier. So I'm just going to choose that, which is me doing one of these tutorials as a sound file. And then it says, what stretch percentage do you want? Now, I haven't really fiddled with this. I just leave it as the defaults and it produced a pretty good thing. And then you have these two options: use a VisTitle source or use an audio source. If you use an audio source, then if you've got a sound file, you can take that sound file and then apply your voice to it. If you use a VisTitle thing, then you've got to write a VisTitle title and then apply your voice to it. I'm going to go for the audio source. I'm going to say yes, add the result to the bin, go next, stick it in the bin, yes please. Give it a name. Let's call it from audio, shall we? Why not? Bong, add it in. And now I've got a new option in here. There is actually already one here, which we just put in by itself. Read something out by Michael, whoever Michael is. I'm going to use the David one that I just made up. Now I need a piece of sound. And just out of interest, I am going to take this thing here. Now, as some of you might know, I am doing a little Doctor Who film with some friends. And this is from one of the scenes. So Can't really show you Doctor Who video stuff because it's all copyright, but I can at least show you some dialogue. So what we have is actually
The interference is...
some Daleks, which have been done with a thing called a voice modulator. Some more
You
Daleks.
will stop.
And then my bad acting.
Expect me to be able to influence anything, did you? Your turn to underestimate me.
Yep, that's definitely bad acting. So there we are. We've got that little bit of dialogue with some different voices in it. Let's see what happens if I apply this to it. So I'm going to save the thing. I'm going to go down, find generate speech, David voice sample 10%. Yep, let it go on. And then it starts going. So what this is actually going to do is take the sound. It's going to make a VisTitle title out of it. And then it's going to apply my voice to it. Now, this is the first time I've actually used this, so it's going to be doing a little bit of downloading as well. So you just have to let it get on with it. Like all BAT server stuff, you can carry on using EDIUS whilst it's doing all this stuff. But it's going to download whatever it needs. It's then going to make a VisTitle subtitle out of it. And then from that, it's going to make a new sound file. Here we are. It's put the new sound file next to the original. Let's take that, pop it onto the timeline, and let's have a proper look at that. So you can see, for a start, the waveforms don't exactly match at all. They're not even in the same kind of timings. If I play it, so let's disable my original and play this one.
The interference is from the Time Lord.
Well, I mean, that sounds fairly natural.
You will stop your activity.
And then
You didn't expect me to be able to influence anything, did you? Your turn to underestimate me.
So I have to be honest, that sounds like me reading a script. It's obviously lost all the bad acting and then the inflection and so on. So it's not recreating the performance, it's basically taking the words and then making a sound file out of that. But I actually think it sounds fairly natural for somebody sitting there reading out a script. I can see some definite uses for this. I have used a similar kind of thing in Resolve. Now what Resolve does that this doesn't do is it will try and mimic the actual performance and it will keep the sound, so the inflection and everything else and the length of it exactly the same as the original. This hasn't done that at all. This has literally just kind of got me to read out a bunch of text. So I can't use this to replace my performance sound. What I could do though is use it just to read something out. So for example, maybe I just want to have a commentary, something like this tutorial. I'm doing a video, maybe a travel video or something, and I want to have some commentary with it, but I hate my own voice, so I could nick somebody else's and just get him to read out my comments and put them in the right places. And that's what I think this will be useful for. Also, I did another job recently where we had a script for something and we were going to get somebody to come in and do the voiceover for it. But we wanted to do a kind of previs. We wanted to lay things out in the first place and see how well it would work with the bits of video that we've got. So we did actually go off to the interweb and got it to take the script and then read it out in a fairly decent voice as a guide to what we were doing in the first place. When the talent came in, we actually recorded it properly. But again, it could be used for that. It could be useful for just taking a script and then reading it out fairly well. Now, in theory, you can take any voice. Obviously, there are some sort of ethical implications of this. I mean, I suppose if you took David Attenborough's voice and put it over your own nature documentary, which only you and your friends see, it's not the end of the world. But if you started doing that and then showing it publicly or even sticking it on YouTube, you're actually ripping off David Attenborough there. So you have to be a bit careful about what you're going to be doing with it. And if you use some people's voices, they have got a right to complain about it. Now, for me personally, I might use it in situations like this, where, for example, when I'm recording this section of the tutorial, I happen to have a terrible cold, and I wish I didn't sound like I had a terrible cold. So I am going to try replacing it with my recorded sample and see if it sounds any better. Now, the other option you have got here is to use a VisTitle title. So let's try doing that. Now, to do this, I'm going to go to the VisTitle library and make up a subtitle. It needs to be a subtitle. I'm going to open it up and then put in something. Yay, save it. So now I want to use this subtitle. To do that, I'm going to come down, and instead of getting me to do it, I'm going to get Michael to do it, whoever that is. So let's put it on the timeline. So I'm going to go to this one, click on the word bin, and say copy it to the timeline menu. So now here we are. If you look at the timeline settings, I've now got that copied to the timeline. If I right click on it, I can go speech to text, Viz subbed read by Michael. Click on that, off it goes. It's a lot faster this time because the first time it had to download some stuff. This time it hasn't. Let's take that, put it onto the timeline, and see what it sounds like read by Michael.
My name is David Clarke, and today I am going to use the speech-to-text thing to read this stuff out.
And you might say, why on earth do you like pause in the middle there? Well, that's because in my subtitle, of course, I had them as 2 separate lines. So maybe I shouldn't have done that. Okay, let me just put this all down to 1 line. Save it. Do it again.
My name is David Clarke, and today I am going to use the speech-to-text thing to read this stuff.
Well, there we are. That made more sense. I put it all in 1 line and it comes out as 1 line. So yeah, 2 ways of doing it. You have to make a subtitle to do it, because I did try it with a VisTitle title on its own and it didn't work. So let's just try a VisTitle title and try doing that by Michael. Come on, Michael. You can do this, Michael. And oh, the logs popped up with an error. So it didn't work because I didn't make a subtitle. That's why I went to the title template library and grabbed a subtitle in the first place and dragged that onto the timeline. So it only works on VisTitle subtitles rather than just VisTitle titles. But yeah, that does work, and you can get it to read it out in Michael's voice or any other voice. You just have to have a sample of it. So what other options do we have on speech to text? Well, I want to add in some of the other things now. So I'm going to open up the BAT server manager from here, because I can do that whilst EDIUS is running. If I tried running it from down here, it would want to check EDIUS as well. So it's nicer to be able to just pop up here and use it. But what I'm going to do now is I am going to install some of these other things. So let's go for text-to-speech by Kokoro, please. So it's going to do that, and it's going to do the env as well. I'm going to go install and let it get on with it. So I've installed the basic Kokoro one, which, as it says on the forum entry by Mick, it either accepts audio or VisTitle subtitle as an input, but is English only. So let's see now. Let's go to the BAT server again. What options do I have? Well, for a start, just installing that and not even restarting EDIUS has meant that suddenly I've got too many entries in here because it's added in some more. So what I'm going to do is I am going to turn something off. So it's added in 2 defaults read by Heart, Heart being one of their pre-made voices. So I'm going to click on New Entry and I'm going to choose Text to Speech. And now I've got a couple of different options. As you can see, I've got my original one, create a cloned voice, create an English voice. So this one here will create an English voice from audio, and this one will create an English voice from a subtitle. What this one will actually do, it'll be like this one. It'll convert it to a subtitle file and then it can convert it to a sound file. So I'm going to click that. What voice do you use? And these are the only ones we've got. Michael, Hart, Lily and George. Oh, let's choose Hart. I'll leave it at 10%. Add the result to the bin. Yep, put it in the bin. Translate by Hart. Bosh. Okay, let's add that in. And now I've got me translate to Hart in there, so I'm just going to go to the bin, right click and say generate speech, translate by Hart. Obviously it says the word translate there because the idea is that you take another language and you convert it into English. But the difference is between this and the first one, I can't use my own voice. I have to use one of theirs. So wait for it to happen, and here's the result.
The interference is from the Time Lord. You will stop your activity. Yes, you didn't expect me to be able to influence anything, did you? Your turn to underestimate me.
I mean, I think that's not bad. I think that's not bad at all. I think I prefer to use my own voice, but I'm not sure which one sounds more realistic. But mainly that's what the other option does. Because I've added in the Kokoro, it does exactly the same thing. The difference is with Kokoro is you have to use one of their voices, whereas using Chatterbox, I can use my own voice. And of course, you've got 2 options here. One is generate a voice from a sound file. One is generate a voice from a subtitle. Now let's look at the final one. So let's go back to this and I'm going to add in that final option by opening the BAT server manager again, wait for it to do its jiggery pokery, and I'm going to install the second one. Now, as I mentioned in the first part of this tutorial, Mick did explain the differences between them here. Chatterbox, which was the first one I use, supports more languages but is a bit slower and lets you use your own voice. The Kokoro one that I've just used uses either VisTitle or an audio for an input. And the third thing I'm going to do is add in this Kokoro Openvino, which lets you just type your own text in a box. So let's just pop that in there and look at the results. So let's go Bosch. Yeah, it has to do both of them. Tick, install. Let it get on with it. Again, it's going to take 5-10 minutes to put that on there, so we'll have to wait whilst that happens. So I've installed Kokoro Openvino. So does that mean you've got to crack open a bottle of wine to use it? I mean, it's always a good excuse, but never mind. So here we are. I am going to add in a new entry. Let's choose the text-to-speech again. So see what options I have now. So I've got your chatterbox, I've got create English voice, and I've now got this fast audio speech generation. So that's the one that's added in. Let's click on a plus. Where I'm going to do it? In the bin, probably. I want to add speech. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Okay. Add that as a menu entry. I've now got an add speech function. So let's go back to the bin, right click on something and say add speech. Let it do its bit. And then we should get a tab. Yep, I have got a tab, which has got some text already in it. Let's clear that and let's say something. I have a few more options on voices here, so let's go for somebody British. Let's choose one of these guys. Again, I can't use my own voice, so let's choose Emma. And let's do a quick preview.
Hello, this is David Clarke, and today I am talking about generating speech using Kokoro and a bottle of wine.
I spelt that wrong, so it's Kokoro. Okay, let's go back and change my tab. And let's try somebody else. Come on, George.
Hello, this is David Clarke, and today I am talking about generating speech using Kokoro and a bottle of wine.
That almost sounds like Christian Guru Murphy, but never mind. Let's try somebody else.
Hello, this is David Clarke, and today I am talking about generating speech using Kokoro and a bottle of wine.
That's nice. I'm going to click Save as File, pop back to here. There it is. I can come back here and change something. And who should we go for? I don't know who. Let's try Fable.
Hello, this is David Clarke, and today I am talking about generating speech using Kokoro and Grass Valley EDIUS BAT server, made by the brilliant Mick.
Yeah, okay, so he doesn't know how to say EDIUS. But let's click Save as File.
Hello, this is
Play
David Clarke, and today I am talking about generating speech using Kokoro and Grass Valley.
I just had to start playing it for it to save a file. I'll stop it, and then here we are. I have now got Fable. Yeah, there we are. Different way of generating some speech. You know, now personally I'll probably use the cloned voice one, so I can do stuff, particularly if I use YouTube's videos maybe in my own voice. But yeah, quite a lot of nice little options there for creating speech from a bunch of text. Now there are other things which I haven't touched on here. I've got a lot of the stuff that was in there before, but we have also added in things like clip information. So if you add that in, so let's take this clip, ask for some information about it. Let's open that up in Firefox. And here we are. It opens up a web. It's not a web page. It opens up in your browser with information about that particular clip. It'll bring up for you more information than you can get out of EDIUS. You know, if I go to the properties in EDIUS for the clip, I've got a bunch of information and some extended stuff here about it, but it might bring up some more stuff. One of the things it says this clip information can do is bring up a map and tell you where that clip was recorded, but only if that clip has got the information recorded in it, which none of mine happen to have. There is also the option to transcode stuff. Click on this and then you can choose some kind of preset. And then when you go to the BAT file, you can go to a particular clip and say, yeah, convert that, please. I can actually do the same thing, of course, by right-clicking and saying convert file and then choosing something out of here. But it just gives you a quicker option of going straight to there as opposed to having to go to convert file and then choose the settings. And like I said, you've got all the stuff that we had before, like the various deinterlacing options, these upscaling things and so on. The final thing I want to look at here is this option, which is AI upscaling. So the BAT server adds in the ability to upscale things using AI, and it will do better upscaling than you can do in EDIUS in the first place. And it's upscaling using this real Esgran, that thing, which is an NVIDIA way of upscaling, which you can use if you have an NVIDIA card, which is kind of using AI to upscale. So I'm going to take that and use that on my clip. So I'm going to click on the plus button. Do I want to add the result to the bin? Yes, please. Do I want it to be in the bin on the timeline? The bin, what do I want to call it? Let's call it that. Let's go next, submit, and now that's been added in. I'm going to pop down to my same old clip, right click and say upscale with the. First time you use this, it'll actually take a bit of time to download stuff, but then once it's done, it'll start processing it. Now here, it's come up with an error, and that's because it doesn't get on with this particular graphics card. This is something that uses later graphics cards. I've got a 1060, it doesn't work. So I'm going to process that on a much more update graphics card, and then I'll show you the results. And now here are the results of all this upscaling. We have the results from using VR real scale and deinterlacing to do a 2x upscale inside of EDIUS. That's the upscale using VR real scan. That's without. And you'll notice it is definitely better. It's a bit sharper and definitely a bit nicer. It's not huge, the difference is subtle, but it is definitely better than the result done with QTMGC. If I look at the file itself, this is a 50p file and it's 1536, so it's double the size of it. And then EDIUS is of course resizing it because my timeline isn't 1536 by 1152, but it has changed it and it's improved it subtly. So it's definitely better than just upscaling in EDIUS. Now, how does that compare to other things? Like I said, what I tend to do is I will take it and I'll put it inside of Topaz to do the upscaling, which is an AI upscaling program. So if I compare that one, which is the VR real scan, to Topaz just using Iris, obviously Topaz has done a lot more to it. It's put much more stuff into the grass and twigs in the background. It's brought out its face a bit more. That's Topaz. That's the VR real scan. Topaz definitely wins. And if I even go a step further than that and I try Starlight, Starlight is something that you get in Topaz if you have the Pro version, which is the more expensive one, and it can take forever to actually encode. This particular clip would probably take about 40 or 50 minutes on my 5060 Ti system. So, you know, it's not the fastest in the world, but the results are way better. You know, it's still not high def, but it is considerably better than the VR real scan, and the VR real scan itself was better than what EDIUS did natively. The thing is, if I want to use Topaz, not only do I have to tie up a machine for a couple of hours to do a minute's worth of stuff, I have to pay for the thing. And to use the Pro version, to use Starlight like I'm using there, to use that Starlight will cost you about £50 a month these days. Now luckily I got it before it went subscription, so I got it cheaper, but these days, it'll cost you about £50 a month to get the Starlight result, to get the fancier result. This is for free with EDIUS, using VR real scan. So if you ignore comparing it to Starlight, which is definitely better, VR real scan is better than native EDIUS. And I can see myself using that for some videos. Let me just put the two next to each other. Like I say, this is VR real scan, this is EDIUS. It's just a bit sharper and a bit nicer. You might not even see it on the video that you're watching because of course they've been mangled in various ways since I did the edit, but it's a bit sharper and it's just a little bit nicer and it's for free. I can see myself using it for things where, yes, I would like the better quality I can get with Topaz, but I don't have the time to spend on doing that. I'm going to do it a lot quicker and I can see myself using it for that because it'll be a lot quicker and a lot simpler just to pop it out of EDIUS and make it up with VR real scan. If you don't want to pay for Topaz, it's a good option. Okay, hope you enjoyed this series of videos about the BAT server. I'll do more when some more things come out for it. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments. Don't forget you can visit my website for more information, www.dvctraining.co.uk. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos, and I'll see you next time.